My name is Edmund, 32, a software engineer in Seattle who earns a comfortable six-figure salary. I've always been disciplined with money, saving every extra dollar for 6 years toward my first home. Then one day, I discovered my nearly $101,000 savings account had been emptied. Only $3,000 remained. My parents, who I'd added to my account for emergencies, had taken $97,000 to buy my brother a house. They always favored him, but this betrayal was beyond imagination. Before I tell you how I found out my life savings vanished, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by those who should protect you. Growing up in Portland, I watched my parents work hard to provide a comfortable, middle-class life. My father, William, spent 30 years in construction, eventually becoming a site supervisor. My mother, Diana, taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school. We never struggled for necessities, but luxuries were carefully budgeted. At least, that was true for me. For my younger brother, Marcus, the rules seemed different. Marcus was 3 years younger, blessed with natural athletic ability and the kind of effortless charisma that draws people in. From our earliest days, the difference in how my parents treated us was subtle but unmistakable. On Christmas mornings, his pile of gifts always towered over mine. When I brought home straight A's, I received a pat on the back. When Marcus managed to pull a B- average, my parents celebrated with dinner at his favorite restaurant. "Your brother needs more encouragement," my mother would explain when I questioned the disparity. "You're naturally gifted with academics. He has to work harder." The pattern continued through our teenage years. I saved for months to buy a second-hand bicycle. Marcus received a brand new one for his birthday. I worked weekends at a local grocery store to afford my first car, a rusting sedan with 200,000 miles on the odometer. My parents helped Marcus buy a 3-year-old pickup truck when he turned 16. Despite these inequalities, I excelled in school, particularly in math and computer science. By senior year, I had been accepted to several universities but chose the state university where tuition would be more affordable. My parents contributed what they could to my education, about $500 per semester. Meanwhile, they covered Marcus's entire college experience at a private university when he followed 2 years later. During college, I worked 20 hours weekly at the campus IT department while maintaining a 3.9 GPA. I graduated with $12,000 in student loans, which I considered reasonable compared to many of my peers. After graduation, I landed an entry-level software development position at a medium-sized tech company in Portland, earning $52,000 annually. Those first few years were lean. I lived with 2 roommates in a cramped apartment, brought lunch from home every day, and tracked every dollar spent. After paying off my student loans in 3 years, I began saving aggressively. When a senior developer position opened at a larger tech company in Seattle offering $90,000, I jumped at the opportunity. Seattle's higher cost of living initially offset my salary increase, but as I progressed in my career, my income grew substantially. By my 30th birthday, I was earning $120,000, with annual bonuses that sometimes reached 20% of my base salary. Through it all, my saving discipline never wavered. I automatically transferred 30% of each paycheck into a high-yield savings account, living comfortably but modestly on the remainder. My apartment in Seattle was small but modern, located in a neighborhood with reasonable commute time. I drove a practical 5-year-old Honda, took modest vacations once yearly, and allowed myself small indulgences like quality coffee and occasional dinners out. My social circle remained small but supportive, primarily colleagues who shared my interest in technology and outdoor activities. 2 years ago, I met Rachel at a friend's housewarming party. As a graphic designer for a marketing agency, she appreciated both creativity and practicality. Our relationship developed naturally, built on shared values, including financial responsibility. Rachel had her own savings plan, though not as aggressive as mine. When we discussed future plans, we agreed homeownership was a priority before considering marriage or family. Throughout these years, my contact with family remained limited. I called my parents monthly, out of obligation. Visits for major holidays were brief and often tense. Marcus had returned to Portland after college, working intermittently in sales roles, but never staying with one company long. My parents often mentioned his career challenges during our calls, along with subtle hints that I should help him more. "Your brother could use some connections in tech," my mother would suggest. Couldn't you ask around at your company? I made token efforts to help, sending Marcus job listings and offering to review his resume, but he rarely followed through. Despite his inconsistent employment, he somehow maintained an upscale apartment, drove a new car every few years, and took expensive vacations. I assumed my parents were subsidizing his lifestyle but never asked directly. By early last year, my savings account had grown to just over $100,000. The Seattle housing market is notoriously expensive, but I had finally accumulated enough for a substantial down payment on a modest condo or small house. Rachel and I began searching in earnest, spending weekends at open houses and evenings browsing listings online. "This is going to be your reward for years of discipline," Rachel said one night as we looked at properties. "I'm so proud of you for sticking to your plan." Her words warmed me. Someone was finally acknowledging my persistence and self-control qualities my family had always taken for granted. After years of watching Marcus receive praise for minimal effort, Rachel's recognition of my diligence felt like a healing balm. 6 months ago, my parents announced they wanted to visit Seattle. This was unusual in the 4 years since I'd moved. They had visited only once, briefly. They claimed they wanted to see my life and spend quality time. Something about their sudden interest made me uneasy, but I agreed, arranging to take a Friday off to accommodate their weekend visit. They arrived on a Thursday evening, and I took them to dinner at a mid-range restaurant in my neighborhood. Rachel joined us, making valiant efforts at conversation despite my parents' tendency to interrupt with stories about Marcus. "Your brother just interviewed for a regional sales director position," my father announced proudly over appetizers. "Could be a real game changer for him." "That's great," I replied automatically, having heard similar announcements many times before, few of which materialized into lasting employment. My mother turned to Rachel, her smile tight. "So, you two have been together. How long now? Any plans for the future?" "We're taking things at our pace," Rachel answered smoothly. "Right now we're focused on finding Edmund a great property to invest in." My mother's eyebrows rose. "Oh? You're house hunting?" The conversation shifted abruptly to my finances. How much had I saved? What price range was I considering? Had I looked into investment properties instead? The questions felt invasive, but I answered vaguely, mentioning only that I had been saving diligently and was exploring options in several neighborhoods. After dinner, we returned to my apartment. My parents immediately noticed the real estate brochures on my coffee table, picking them up and commenting on the prices. "Seattle is so expensive," my mother said, frowning at a listing. "In Portland, this would cost half as much." My father settled into my couch, looking around appraisingly. "You know, Edmund, families should always look out for each other. Your mother and I won't be around forever, and then it'll just be you and Marcus. Brothers need to stick together." The comment seemed out of place, but I nodded politely. The evening ended relatively early, with my parents returning to their hotel downtown. The next day, I showed them around Seattle, including a drive through the neighborhoods where I hoped to buy. I had recently purchased a new car, nothing flashy, just a reliable mid-range sedan, and my father commented repeatedly on what good shape I was in financially. "You always were good with money," he said, in a rare moment of praise. "Not like your brother. He could learn from you." That evening over dinner, my father casually mentioned he'd had some heart issues recently. "Nothing serious," he assured when I expressed concern. "Just a little scare that got us thinking about practical matters." My mother reached across the table to touch my hand. "Actually, Edmund, there's something we wanted to discuss with you. Your father and I have been updating our will and getting our affairs in order. It made us think about your situation, too." "My situation?" I asked, confused. "You're single, living alone," she continued. "God forbid something should happen to you, but if it did, someone would need access to your finances to handle everything." I started to mention Rachel, but my father interrupted. "We think it would make sense to add us to your bank account," he said directly, "just for emergencies. If you were incapacitated or worse, we'd need to handle funeral arrangements, your apartment, all those details." I felt an immediate resistance to the idea. "I appreciate the concern, but I have everything organized. My important documents are in a secure file, and Rachel knows where to find them if needed." "A girlfriend isn't family," my mother said dismissively. "What if you two break up next month? Then what?" "I can always set up an emergency plan with the bank," I suggested. "There are proper channels for this kind of thing." My father's expression darkened. So you don't trust us with your money, after everything we've done for you? The conversation devolved from there. They reminded me of sacrifices they'd made during my childhood, college tuition they'd helped with, conveniently inflating the actual amounts, and how hurt they were that I would shut them out of this aspect of my life. It's not about trust, I tried explaining. It's about proper financial boundaries. Boundaries, my mother repeated incredulously. We're your parents, not some strangers. By the end of the evening, I felt cornered and guilty. When Rachel and I discussed it later, she expressed reservation. It seems unnecessary, she said carefully. And if they're so concerned about emergency access, there are better ways to arrange that through proper legal channels. I knew she was right, but the guilt lingered. The next morning, my final day with my parents, I reluctantly agreed to their request. We'll go to your bank together, my father said, patting my shoulder. Just a simple authorization form, that's all. We visited my bank that afternoon. The process was more involved than my father had suggested, requiring significant paperwork to add them as authorized users with full access privileges. The banker, a young woman named Stephanie, gave me a questioning look during the process. "Are you sure you want to add full access privileges?" she asked quietly, while my parents were distracted by some brochures. There are more limited options for emergency contact authorization. It's fine, I assured her, feeling my father's impatient gaze. They're my parents. Stephanie nodded professionally but handed me a pamphlet about account security as we finished. Just be aware that authorized users have the same access rights as you do, she added. My father clapped me on the back as we left the bank. This is just a formality, son. We'll never touch your money unless there's a real emergency. We had lunch afterward, my parents in unusually good spirits. My mother hugged me tightly when they left for Portland that evening. "We're so proud of how responsible you've become," she said. "You're doing so well for yourself." Life returned to normal after their visit. Work kept me busy with a major product launch, and Rachel and I continued our property search on weekends. After several months, we found a perfect townhouse in a neighborhood we loved. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, updated kitchen, and within our budget at $620,000. With 20% down, my mortgage payments would be manageable on my salary. We submitted an initial offer and began discussing financing details. The seller seemed receptive, and I felt a growing excitement about finally achieving this milestone. The day before I planned to withdraw my down payment, I called my parents to share the news. "That's wonderful, honey," my mother exclaimed with unusual enthusiasm. "This is such an important step. We're so happy for you." My father was equally effusive. "My son, the homeowner, can't wait to see the place. When do you close?" Their positive reaction was surprising but welcome. For once, they seemed genuinely happy about my achievement without comparing it to Marcus or offering unsolicited advice. I ended the call feeling unusually positive about our relationship. The next morning, I arrived at the bank as soon as it opened, ready to withdraw $124,000 for the down payment. I approached the teller with confidence, provided my ID, and requested the withdrawal. The young man's fingers tapped across his keyboard, then paused. He frowned slightly, tapped again, then glanced up at me with confusion. "Mr. Wright, there seems to be a discrepancy with your account balance. Let me check something." He stepped away to consult with a colleague, then returned with a senior banker. "Mr. Wright, I'm Joseph Keller, the branch manager. Could you step into my office for a moment?" My stomach tightened as I followed him. In his office, he turned his monitor so I could see it. "Your current balance is $3,241, he said gently. "According to our records, a withdrawal of $97,559 was made 3 days ago from our Portland branch location." I stared at the screen, unable to process what I was seeing. "That's impossible. I didn't make any withdrawal." "The transaction was authorized," the manager continued, clicking through several screens. "It was an in-person withdrawal made by Diana Wright, who is listed as an authorized user on the account." My mother's name hit me like a physical blow. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I gripped the arms of my chair, my mouth suddenly dry. "Can you show me the exact transaction?" I managed to ask. He turned the monitor further, revealing the details. Date, time, location, a branch less than a mile from my parents' house. My mother had withdrawn nearly everything I'd saved, leaving just enough to keep the account open without triggering low balance alerts. I need to see security footage, I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. This wasn't authorized by me. I understand this is distressing, the manager replied cautiously. However, Miss Wright is an authorized user with full access privileges. Legally, she had the right to make this withdrawal. But it's my money, I insisted, my voice rising. I didn't give permission for this specific withdrawal. Unfortunately, adding someone as an authorized user with full privileges is giving legal permission for any transaction they choose to make, he explained. I can request the security footage from the Portland branch, but it won't change the legal status of the withdrawal. I called my parents immediately from the banker's office. No answer from either of their cell phones. I tried their home phones straight to voicemail. I sent text messages that showed as delivered but remained unanswered. I need to file a police report, I told the manager. He looked uncomfortable. You can certainly do that, but I should warn you that police will likely view this as a civil matter, not criminal theft, given the account permissions. I called the Portland police anyway, explaining the situation to an officer who confirmed exactly what the bank manager had predicted. Since my parents were legally authorized users, this was a family dispute, not theft in the eyes of the law. In desperation, I called Rachel, who left work immediately to meet me at the bank. By the time she arrived, I had obtained printouts of all recent transactions and was sitting shell-shocked in the lobby. "What are we going to do about the house?" was my first question when she sat beside me. Rachel took my hands in hers. "Forget the house for now. We need to deal with this first. Have you reached your parents yet?" I shook my head. "They're not answering. I think they knew exactly what they were doing." "Let's go to Portland," Rachel said decisively. "Now, today. We need to confront them directly." We left immediately in my car, Rachel driving while I continued, calling my parents and brother repeatedly. No one answered. 3 hours later, we pulled into my parents' suburban Portland neighborhood. Their house looked quiet, both their cars gone from the driveway. The elderly neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, was watering plants in her front yard. She waved when she saw me. "Edmund, what a nice surprise. Your parents didn't mention you were visiting too." "Too?" I asked, approaching her fence. "Yes, they're over helping Marcus move into his new house today. So exciting for him, first-time homeowner. Your parents are just thrilled." My blood ran cold. "Do you know where this new house is?" "Oh yes, it's in that new development in Beaverton. Riverstone, I think it's called. They've been talking about it for weeks." Rachel and I got back in the car, and I quickly searched for the Riverstone development. It was an upscale neighborhood of newly built single-family homes with prices starting in the high 500s. 20 minutes later, we pulled onto a street of pristine new houses with immaculate landscaping. Near the end of the block, I spotted both my parents' cars, my father's SUV, and my mother's sedan parked in the driveway of a large 2-story home. A moving truck was in the street, and I could see people carrying boxes inside. I parked behind the moving truck and walked straight up the driveway, Rachel following close behind. The front door stood open, and without hesitating, I walked in. The scene inside froze, as if someone had pressed pause. My father was directing movers with a box of kitchen items. My mother was arranging decorative items on a mantel. Marcus stood in the center of the living room, unpacking a box of electronics. All three turned to stare at me, expressions shifting from surprise to something else: guilt, defiance, and discomfort. "Hello," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Nice house. I believe I paid for it." My mother recovered first. "Edmund, what a surprise. We were going to call you tonight." "After the money was spent and it was too late to stop you," I interrupted. Marcus stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. "Bro, this isn't what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like you're moving into a house bought with $97,000 stolen from my savings account." My father's face hardened. "Nothing was stolen. Your mother and I made a family decision to reallocate resources where they were needed most." "Reallocate resources?" I repeated incredulously. "That was my life savings. Money I spent 6 years accumulating for my house." My mother set down the vase she'd been holding. "Marcus needed this more than you do, Edmund. He struggled for so long, and with the baby coming—" "Baby? What baby?" I looked at Marcus. He shifted uncomfortably. "Heather's pregnant. 4 months along. We're getting married next month." This new information momentarily derailed me. I hadn't even known Marcus was in a serious relationship, but the distraction was brief. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "But that doesn't explain why my money paid for your house." "You're being selfish," my father said, stepping closer. "You've always been financially secure. You have a six-figure job. Marcus has had setbacks. Setbacks he created," I shot back. "And how exactly am I being selfish when you took my money without permission?" My mother began to cry, her go-to tactic when confronted. "We're family. Family helps each other. You wouldn't have voluntarily helped your brother, so we had to take matters into our own hands." "You're right about one thing," I said coldly. "I wouldn't have voluntarily given Marcus $97,000, especially not knowing his history of financial irresponsibility." Marcus flushed. "That's not fair. I've had bad luck." "Bad luck?" I laughed bitterly. "Is that what we're calling it? Was it bad luck that got your previous house foreclosed on? Was it bad luck that got you fired from your last 3 jobs?" A flash of something shame perhaps crossed Marcus's face before he looked away. My father stepped between us. "Your brother made some mistakes. He got involved with the wrong crowd, made some bad bets, but he's turning his life around now." "Bad bets?" I repeated. "You mean gambling? Is that where all his money went? Is that why he lost his house?" The silence that followed was confirmation enough. I turned to Marcus, who wouldn't meet my eyes. "So not only did our parents steal my money to buy you a house, they did it knowing you lost your previous home because of a gambling addiction. That's just perfect." "It wasn't stealing," my mother protested, tears streaming down her face. "We're your parents. We were just trying to help the family." "Help the family?" I repeated, my voice rising. "How exactly does emptying my savings account help ME?" My father stepped forward, his expression stern. "Watch your tone, Edmund. You've always had everything come easy to you. Good grades, scholarships, high-paying job. Your brother has struggled his whole life to keep up. And whose fault is that?" I shot back. "You coddled him, made excuses for him, bailed him out of every consequence. Now you're stealing my money to continue the pattern." Marcus finally spoke up. "Look, I didn't know where the money was coming from, okay? Mom and Dad just said they were helping with the down payment." "Really?" I turned to him skeptically. "You thought our retired teacher mom and contractor dad suddenly had $97,000 lying around? You never questioned where this money came from?" He looked away, confirming my suspicion. "They said they'd been saving," he mumbled unconvincingly. My mother wiped her tears, shifting tactics. "Edmund, you've always been so responsible with money. We saw how much you were saving and, frankly, it seemed excessive. You don't need such a large house for just yourself." "It wasn't going to be just for me," I said, gesturing to Rachel, who stood quietly by the door. "We were planning our future. And even if I were buying it just for myself, it's my money to decide how to use." "We can work out a repayment plan," Marcus offered, though his tone lacked conviction. "Once I'm established in my new job, I can start paying you back. Maybe a few hundred a month?" I did the math quickly. At $300 a month, it would take over 27 years to repay what you took. "We did what was best for the whole family," my father insisted. "Marcus has Heather to think about now, and the baby. They need stability." "And I don't?" I countered. "I had plans for that money. Real plans that are now destroyed." My mother approached me, reaching out to touch my arm. I stepped back. "Honey, you have to understand. Marcus has had such difficulties. Remember when he lost his last house? The bank foreclosed, and he had nowhere to go." "I remember," I said coldly. "What I didn't know until now was why he lost that house. Gambling, Dad mentioned. Exactly what kind of bad bets are we talking about?" An uncomfortable silence fell. Marcus stared at the floor. "Sport betting, mostly," my father finally admitted. "It got out of hand. He owed some people money. So not just gambling, but gambling debts to the kind of people you don't want to owe money to," I concluded. "And your solution was to steal my money rather than get him proper help?" "We did get him help," my mother protested. "He attended those meetings for a while. 3 gamblers, anonymous meetings before he quit," my father corrected, looking embarrassed. I turned to Marcus. "And are you still gambling?" "No," he answered too quickly. When I continued staring at him, he amended, "Not much, just fantasy sports. It's different." "It's not different," Rachel spoke up for the first time. It's still gambling if money changes hands based on game outcomes. Marcus glared at her. No one asked you. This is a family matter. She is family, I snapped. More family than you three have proven to be. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I want my money back. All of it. Now. My father crossed his arms. That's not possible. The money has been spent. It's the down payment on this house, and the papers are already signed. Then sell the house, I demanded. We can't, Marcus protested. We'd lose money on the selling costs, and Heather's already in love with the place. Where would we live? That's not my problem, I replied coldly. You should have thought of that before stealing my money. Nothing was stolen. My mother wailed again. We're family. Family doesn't do this to each other, I countered, and if you can't return my money immediately, then I want a legally binding repayment agreement. I want it in writing, with consequences if payments are missed. My father's face darkened with anger. You would take legal action against your own family? You'd destroy us all over money? I'm destroying the family? I laughed bitterly. You stole $97,000 from me, and I'm the one destroying the family by asking for it back? You can easily save that amount again, my mother said dismissively. With your job, you'll have it back in no time. Marcus can't save that way. He needs our help. Her words hit me like a slap. In that moment, I saw clearly how my parents viewed me not as a son they loved, but as a resource they could tap when Marcus needed bailing out. All my hard work, discipline, and responsibility were being used against me. You know what? Marcus said suddenly. If it's that big a deal, you can have a room here. The house has 4 bedrooms. One could be yours when you visit. That way, you benefit too. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. You think giving me a guest room in the house my money paid for is a fair exchange for $97,000? I'm trying to find a solution here, Marcus said defensively. The only solution is returning my money, I stated firmly. And until that happens, we have nothing more to discuss. I turned to leave, but my father grabbed my arm. If you walk out that door and pursue this legally, you're no longer part of this family. Think carefully about what you're doing. I looked him directly in the eyes. You stopped being my family the moment you decided my life savings were yours to take. I pulled my arm free and walked out, Rachel following close behind. My mother's wailing and my father's angry shouts followed us down the driveway. As we reached my car, Marcus came running after us. Edmund, wait. We can work something out. Just don't do anything drastic. Like steal $97,000? I asked sarcastically. That kind of drastic? I'll talk to Mom and Dad, he promised. Maybe we can get a home equity loan or something to pay you back part of it now. Talk to your pregnant girlfriend too, I advised coldly. Make sure she knows what she's getting into with this family. Because from where I stand, you're all thieves who use family as an excuse to take whatever you want. That's not fair, Marcus protested weakly. Neither is theft, I replied, getting into my car. You have 1 week to come up with a repayment plan. After that, I'm consulting a lawyer. We drove away, leaving Marcus standing in the street. Rachel reached over and squeezed my hand as we turned the corner. I'm so sorry, she said quietly. What are we going to do now? First, we're changing banks, I replied grimly. And then we're figuring out exactly what legal options I have. The drive back to Seattle was mostly silent. Rachel occasionally squeezed my hand or offered quiet reassurance, but understood I needed space to process. My mind raced between shock, rage, and a deep, aching sense of betrayal that made my chest physically hurt. The next morning, I called the sellers of our dream house to withdraw our offer, explaining vaguely that there had been an unexpected financial setback. The real estate agent informed me they had accepted a backup offer just hours after our withdrawal. Another dream snatched away. Rachel and I spent the weekend researching affordable apartments instead of shopping for furniture for our new home. We found a decent 1-bedroom unit in a less desirable neighborhood, a significant downgrade from both my current apartment and the townhouse we'd hoped to buy. It felt like moving backward after years of progress. On Monday, I took a personal day and went to a different bank, opening new accounts with enhanced security measures and no authorized users. I closed my compromised account, transferring the remaining $3,000. The bank manager seemed concerned when I explained what happened. Unfortunately, we see this more often than you'd think, she said sympathetically. Family financial abuse is surprisingly common. Is there anything I can do legally to recover the money? I asked. Since they were authorized users, criminal charges are unlikely to succeed, she advised. Your best bet might be a civil lawsuit, but those can be expensive and emotionally draining when family is involved. I consulted with 2 different lawyers that week. Both gave similar assessments. I had a legitimate civil claim, but pursuing it would be costly, time-consuming, and might yield limited results if my parents and brother didn't have assets to recover. Even with a judgment in your favor, collecting could be difficult, one attorney explained. And if the house is in your brother's name with a mortgage, it's already leveraged as collateral to the bank. I felt trapped in an impossible situation, betrayed, with limited recourse, and facing significant financial setback. The hardest part was explaining to colleagues and friends why our house purchase had fallen through. I told only my closest friend at work the full truth, giving others a vague explanation about family financial issues. Meanwhile, my phone exploded with messages from my family. My mother sent tearful voicemails, fluctuating between guilt trips and religious references. Edmund, please call us. We're still your parents who love you. The Bible teaches forgiveness. Without forgiveness, how can any family survive? My father's messages were more confrontational. This tantrum needs to stop. We made a decision for the good of the entire family. If you force this into legal territory, you'll regret it. He began sending small payments to my new account, $200 here, $300 there, with memo lines reading goodwill payment. I documented each one but didn't respond to his messages. Marcus's communications were the most manipulative. He sent links to houses in Seattle that cost much less than what I'd been considering. See? You can still buy something nice for way less than what you were planning to spend. Then came photos of Heather's ultrasound with messages like, your future niece or nephew's first picture. They'll need their Uncle Edmund in their life. The most infuriating messages came from extended family members who had clearly heard a one-sided version of events. My Aunt Patricia called to tell me how disappointed she was in my selfish behavior. Your brother is starting a family, she chided. You're single with a big salary. Family helps family in times of need. Did they mention they took $97,000 without asking me? I countered. They said they borrowed some money you had sitting in a savings account, she replied, clearly unaware of the amount. They said you're making a huge deal over nothing. These conversations left me emotionally drained. Rachel suggested I block all their numbers temporarily for my mental health. I compromised by silencing notifications and checking messages only once daily. At Rachel's insistence, I began seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Dr. Harrison helped me understand that my family's behavior wasn't just about this one incident. It was the culmination of lifelong dynamics. What you're describing is a classic golden child divided by scapegoat dynamic, he explained during our second session. Your brother was the golden child who could do no wrong, while you were expected to be self-sufficient and received less support and recognition. But to steal my savings? I asked. That goes beyond favoritism. People who create these unhealthy dynamics often feel entitled to take from the scapegoat, he replied. In their distorted thinking, you owe the family because you've been successful, even though your success came from your own hard work despite their lack of support. These insights helped intellectually but did little to ease the emotional pain. Rachel suggested she move in with me when my lease expired, combining our resources to save more effectively. It made practical sense, though I hated that financial necessity was accelerating our relationship timeline. Are you sure? I asked her. This isn't how I wanted this to happen. I'm sure about us, she said simply. The timing and circumstances aren't ideal, but I was planning on living with you in the new house anyway. Her support was unwavering. While I retreated into work and solitude, Rachel researched legal options, organized our apartment hunt, and protected me from well-meaning but painful questions from friends. When I apologized for being emotionally distant, she was patient. You're grieving, she pointed out. Not just the money, but the family you thought you had. She was right. Beyond the practical implications, I was mourning the destruction of my family relationships. Despite their flaws, I had maintained the hope that my parents loved me equally to Marcus. That illusion was now shattered beyond repair. 6 months after the theft, I had established a new normal. Rachel and I shared a smaller apartment. I had taken on additional contract work to accelerate my savings rebuilding. My therapy sessions continued bi-weekly. I had blocked all family contact except for documenting my father's sporadic goodwill payments, which now totaled just under $5,000. During this time, I had started anonymously blogging about financial abuse within families. What began as personal catharsis evolved into a resource that resonated with others in similar situations. Comments flooded in from people sharing their own experiences of family members taking loans without repaying, unauthorized credit card use, and outright theft justified as helping family. "Your story helped me recognize what was happening in my own family," one commenter wrote. "I've now secured my finances and set boundaries I never had the courage to establish before." This unexpected community became a source of healing. While I couldn't recover my stolen savings, I could help others protect themselves from similar betrayal. The blog's growing popularity brought a sense of purpose from my pain. As Rachel and I adjusted to our new reality, I gradually accepted that I might never recover most of the stolen money. My focus shifted to rebuilding not just financially, but emotionally. I surrounded myself with trustworthy friends who became the family I chose rather than the one I was born into. Family isn't just about blood. Rachel reminded me one evening as we had dinner with friends who had supported us through the crisis. It's about who shows up for you when it matters. Looking around the table at these friends who had offered help, listened without judgment, and stood by me during my darkest moments, I finally understood what real family meant. 7 months after the theft, an unexpected email arrived in my inbox. The sender was H. Reynolds with the subject line, "About Marcus and your parents." I nearly deleted it, assuming it was another family member recruited to guilt me, but something made me open it. "Edmund, you don't know me, but I'm Heather, Marcus's fiancée, though I'm reconsidering that status. There are things you should know about your parents and Marcus's financial situation. I only recently discovered the truth about where our house down payment came from. I'm horrified and ashamed. If you're willing to meet privately, I have information that might help you recover your money. I can meet in Seattle if that's safer for you." I showed the email to Rachel, who advised caution. "It could be legitimate, or it could be another manipulation tactic," she warned. I replied, requesting a video call first, which Heather agreed to immediately. The next evening, Rachel and I sat together as a young woman with tired eyes and a visibly pregnant belly appeared on my laptop screen. "Thank you for speaking with me," she began nervously. "I want to start by saying how sorry I am about what happened to you. I had no idea the down payment came from your savings until last month when I overheard an argument between Marcus and your parents." "What did you hear?" I asked cautiously. "They were fighting about money again," she sighed. "Your parents were saying Marcus needed to be more grateful for what they'd done for him, the risks they'd taken. When I asked later what risks, Marcus got defensive. After some pressure, he admitted everything." "And you're contacting me because?" I prompted. "Because it's wrong," she said firmly. "And because there's more you should know. Your parents didn't just take your money for our house. They've been financially supporting Marcus for years. They took out 2 mortgages on their own home to cover his gambling debts. They're now facing possible foreclosure themselves." This news stunned me. My parents had always seemed financially stable, if not wealthy. "How bad is it?" Rachel asked. "Bad," Heather confirmed. "Marcus lost his job 3 weeks ago, another one, but hasn't told your parents yet. He's still gambling despite promising to stop. I found betting apps on his phone and transactions on statements he thought I wouldn't see." Her voice cracked. "I'm 6 months pregnant and engaged to someone who's lying to me daily. Now your parents are asking us for money, saying they might lose their house. I'm sorry you're in this situation," I said sincerely. "But why tell me? What do you hope will happen?" "Honestly, I want Marcus to face consequences for once in his life," she replied. "Your parents have always shielded him, making excuses, solving his problems. It's only made everything worse. I'm considering leaving him, but I need a plan first." She paused. "And I thought you deserved to know that your parents aren't just being selfish, they're desperate because they've bankrupted themselves, enabling Marcus." We talked for nearly 2 hours. Heather shared details about Marcus's gambling addiction, which had escalated rather than improved. She showed me screenshots of bank statements revealing his ongoing betting activity and the dire state of their finances despite the new house. Most valuably, she confirmed that my parents owned a vacation cabin in the mountains that they'd kept hidden from creditors. "They never put it in their will or official documents," she explained. They always said it would be Marcus's private inheritance someday. After the call, Rachel looked at me thoughtfully. This changes things. Your parents aren't just playing favorites. They're desperate after enabling Marcus for decades. And now they have assets they're hiding. Which means I might actually recover some of my money, I realized. What's your plan? She asked. I'm going to confront them, but strategically this time, with evidence and leverage. I spent the next week gathering information. With Heather's help, I documented my parents' hidden assets, including the mountain cabin worth approximately $200,000. I compiled statements showing all unauthorized withdrawals from my account and my father's inadequate goodwill payments. I collected evidence of Marcus's ongoing gambling from screenshots Heather provided. Armed with this information, I requested a meeting at my parents' house on my terms, Saturday at 2 o'clock, with Marcus present and no excuses. My father initially refused but relented when I mentioned important financial information regarding the mountain property. Rachel offered to accompany me for support, but I decided to go alone. This is something I need to do myself, I explained. To fully close this chapter, the 3-hour drive to Portland gave me time to rehearse what I would say. I arrived precisely at 2, a folder of documents under my arm. My parents' house, once familiar and comforting, now felt like hostile territory. Marcus's car was already in the driveway. My mother opened the door, immediately attempting to hug me. I stepped back. This isn't a social visit, I said firmly. It's a business meeting. In the living room, my father and Marcus sat tensely. Both looked worse than I remembered my father aged, with new worry lines, and Marcus unshaven and fidgety. Edmund, my father began gruffly. Good to see you're finally being reasonable. We can put this unpleasantness behind us. I'm not here for reconciliation, I interrupted, sitting down and placing my folder on the coffee table. I'm here because you stole $97,000 from me, and now I have the leverage to get it back. My mother gasped. That's a terrible thing to say. But accurate, I countered. And I now know why you did it. You've spent decades bailing Marcus out of his gambling problems. You've mortgaged your house twice. You're facing foreclosure. And you saw my savings as an easy solution. The color drained from my father's face. Who told you these things? That's not important, I replied. What matters is that I know about the mountain cabin you've kept off the books, the property you've hidden from creditors, the asset you could sell to repay what you stole from me. You're bluffing, Marcus said, though his voice wavered. I opened my folder, laying out documents one by one. Bank statements showing your ongoing betting activity, despite claiming to be recovered. Records of the cash withdrawals you've made immediately after your paycheck's deposit. Evidence of the cabin's ownership and current market value. My mother began to cry real tears this time, not the manipulative sobs I'd seen before. We were trying to protect the family's future. No, I corrected. You were enabling Marcus's addiction while stealing from me. That stops now. I placed a formal repayment agreement on the table. Here's how this will work. You will sell the mountain cabin immediately. The proceeds will go first to repay my $97,000 with reasonable interest. Any remaining funds can help with your mortgage situation. In exchange, I won't report the cabin to creditors or the IRS for investigation. My father's face flushed with anger. You would blackmail your own parents? I would use leverage to recover stolen money, I corrected. Just as you used your position as my parents to steal from me. And if we refuse? He challenged. Then I'll report the hidden asset to both your creditors and the relevant tax authorities. I'll also share evidence of Marcus's ongoing gambling with his employer and creditors. Additionally, I'll pursue civil action despite the costs, ensuring this family secret becomes very public. The room fell silent. My mother stared at the floor. My father's jaw worked silently. Marcus looked trapped. You've become cold, my mother finally whispered. I've become clear-eyed, I corrected. You taught me that blood relationship doesn't equal trustworthiness. It was an expensive lesson, but I've learned it well. The front door opened, and Heather walked in. Marcus jumped to his feet. What are you doing here? I invited her, I said calmly. As the mother of your child and the other victim in this situation, she deserves to be part of the solution. You've been talking to him? Marcus demanded of Heather. Someone in this family needed to tell the truth, she replied steadily, taking a seat beside me. My father looked between us, realization dawning. You two planned this. We shared information, I corrected, because we're both tired of the lies and manipulation. I pushed the agreement forward. You have two options. Sign this today. Begin the process of selling the cabin, and I'll consider this matter resolvable without legal or tax authorities becoming involved. Refuse, and I'll pursue every avenue available to expose the financial deception that's been happening. What about Marcus? My mother asked weakly. If we sell the cabin, what will happen to him? The agreement includes a condition, I explained. Marcus must enter a legitimate gambling addiction treatment program, not just 3 meetings, and complete it. His continued recovery will be a condition of our ongoing arrangement. You can't force me into treatment, Marcus protested. No, but I can make it a condition of not exposing your continued gambling to everyone in your life, I replied evenly. The choice is yours. My father reached for the agreement, reading it carefully. After several tense minutes, he looked up. You've thought of everything. I learned from experience to be thorough when dealing with this family. He picked up a pen, hesitated, then signed. My mother followed suit, tears streaming silently. Marcus initially refused, but after a pointed look from Heather at her pregnant belly, grudgingly added his signature. As I gathered the signed documents, my father spoke quietly. Will we ever be a family again? I looked at him directly. That depends on whether you honor this agreement, whether Marcus actually commits to recovery, and whether any of you can earn back even a fraction of the trust you destroyed. I'm not optimistic, but I'm leaving the possibility open on my terms. I stood to leave, nodding to Heather. Thank you for your courage. She nodded back. I did it for my baby, and for myself. As I walked out the door, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time since discovering the theft, I felt something close to peace. Not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stood my ground on my own terms. The cabin sold faster than expected, benefiting from a hot vacation property market. Within 6 weeks, I received a wire transfer for my full $97,000 plus $3,000 in calculated interest. My parents used the remaining proceeds to catch up on their mortgage payments, narrowly avoiding foreclosure. Marcus initially resisted treatment, attending a few sessions half-heartedly before dropping out. It was only after Heather moved out, taking only personal belongings and leaving the house keys behind, that the reality of his situation finally hit him. Faced with losing both his relationship and his child, he recommitted to recovery, this time with genuine effort. He's actually doing the work now, Heather told me during one of our monthly check-in calls. His sponsor says he's one of the most committed members in the group. Do you think you'll go back to him? I asked. Not anytime soon, she replied firmly. He needs to prove this change is real and lasting. I'm focusing on the baby and my own well-being for now. With my savings restored, Rachel and I resumed house hunting, though our expectations had shifted. Instead of the larger townhouse we'd initially wanted, we found a modest 2-bedroom condo in a nice neighborhood with good investment potential. It wasn't our dream home, but it was ours, purchased with clear ownership and protected by legal safeguards I hadn't known to implement before. It's perfect for now, Rachel said as we unpacked boxes in our new living room. We can always upgrade in a few years when we've both saved more. The important thing is, it's ours, free from family complications, I agreed. The night we finished moving in, Rachel surprised me by proposing a simple, heartfelt question over takeout dinner on our new balcony. We planned a small wedding, inviting only close friends who had supported us through the crisis. My therapy sessions continued, though less frequently. Dr. Harrison helped me work through the complex emotions of maintaining limited contact with my family while protecting my boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or exposing yourself to further harm, he reminded me. It means releasing the corrosive anger so it doesn't consume you. Gradually, I established a new relationship with my family, one built on clear boundaries and careful trust. We began with monthly family dinners at a neutral restaurant, with strict rules: no discussions of money, no guilt trips, and immediate departure if boundaries were crossed. Initially awkward and tense, these gatherings slowly evolved into cautiously civil interactions. My father, humbled by nearly losing his home and facing his own enabling behavior, began attending Al-Anon meetings to understand his role in Marcus's addiction. My mother resisted change longer, still prone to emotional manipulation, but gradually modified her behavior when she realized her old tactics no longer worked with me. Marcus's journey proved the most surprising. 6 months into legitimate recovery, he secured a stable job in sales for a software company, a position I hadn't helped him get. He attended therapy both individually and with Heather, who had agreed to co-parenting counseling after their daughter Sophia was born. I never really understood how much Mom and Dad protected me from consequences, he admitted during a rare one-on-one lunch. It didn't help me, it kept me stuck. I wish it hadn't taken something this extreme to change things, I replied honestly. Me too, he said, looking genuinely remorseful. I'm sorry, Edmund. I know those words don't fix anything, but I am truly sorry for my part in what happened. It was the first genuine apology I'd received from any family member, one without excuses or deflection. While it didn't erase the past, it opened a small door to a different kind of future relationship. Heather and I maintained our alliance, which evolved into genuine friendship. She sent regular updates and photos of Sophia, who became the first niece I cautiously allowed myself to bond with. When Heather decided to return to school to finish her nursing degree, Rachel and I occasionally babysat, building our own relationship with the innocent child who had been conceived during such a turbulent time. 1 year after the confrontation, my financial recovery was nearly complete. Through aggressive saving, investment growth, and Rachel's contributions to our shared expenses, my personal savings had rebuilt to almost $80,000. We lived more frugally than before, but not out of necessity, rather from a newfound appreciation for security and preparation. The blog I had started about family financial abuse evolved into a moderated support forum for others facing similar situations. Hundreds of people shared their stories, offered advice, and celebrated their boundaries. Several financial advisors volunteered expertise about protecting assets from family exploitation. The community became a source of both healing and purpose. On the anniversary of discovering the theft, Rachel and I hosted a small dinner party in our condo. The guests included my closest work friend and his wife, two couples we'd met through our neighborhood, and surprisingly, Heather with baby Sophia. As we shared food and conversation, I realized how much my definition of family had expanded and evolved. After dinner, Rachel squeezed my hand under the table. "You've come so far," she whispered. Looking around at the warm, trustworthy people surrounding us, I felt profound gratitude. The journey had been painful, but the destination this chosen family built on mutual respect and genuine care was worth it. Later that evening, after our guests had left, I stood on our small balcony looking at the city lights. Rachel joined me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How differently things turned out than I planned," I replied. "But also how much stronger I am for having gone through this." "You stood up for yourself," she said simply. "You taught them how to treat you." Her words captured the essence of my journey. Through the betrayal, confrontation, and cautious rebuilding, I had finally learned that trust must be earned even from family. Standing up for myself wasn't selfish, but necessary. While the money had eventually been returned, what I gained in self-respect was worth far more. The experience had taught me that you teach people how to treat you by what you accept, what you allow, and what you condone. By refusing to accept betrayal, I had changed not only my family dynamic but my understanding of my own worth. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who crossed your boundaries? I hope my story helps you find the courage to protect yourself if needed. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming difficult family situations. And remember, blood makes you related, but trust and respect make you family. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength in your own boundaries.